title of the story is Until the Echo Fades. With his eyes following the lines of the faded family portrait on the wall, Mark stood at the base of the old staircase on a cold morning. His parents, in their heyday, happy and relaxed. Their laughing reverberated throughout the house, almost audible to him. Now, however, the silence was intolerable. Mark was a man who had been on the verge of being overly busy throughout his life. He took great satisfaction in his professional background, social networks, and personal development. However, the most basic things, the ones that were most important, had fallen between the cracks in the process. His parents, who used to constitute his entire universe, were now merely supporting characters in his own narrative. Not intentionally, but accidentally. Mark used to spend his afternoons with his parents as a child. He would ask them questions that, although they seemed insignificant at the time, now seemed important. He would ask his mother how the stars remained in the sky, and his father would narrate stories about his early years spent in a far-off land, filled with dreams and adventures. However, he became so engrossed in his own world that those stories eventually disappeared from his memory. Not that Mark's parents were flawless. His mother was often overbearing and preoccupied with everything, and his father was prone to losing his temper. They did, however, love him without conditions. In order to provide him with a better life and ensure that he had opportunities that they were never given, they made innumerable sacrifices. But Mark never truly understood that. His parents missed him a lot, but he was too preoccupied with parties, relationships, and the excitement of independence in college to notice. After graduating, he promised them he would visit more frequently when he moved to the city for his first major job. Weeks became months, and months became years, because he was always away from home due to his hectic schedule. Mark would ignore it even when his mother called, her voice shaking with a mix of worry and longing. "I'm simply very busy, Mom." He would make vacuous promises that he never really meant, such as, "I'll come visit soon, I promise." Mark knew that his father, who was always the quiet type, felt the weight of his absence, but he just accepted that Mark now had his own life. Things didn't start to change until Mark got a call one early winter evening. His sister's voice was heard on the other end, her words stifled by tears. "It's Mom. Mark, she's gone." It came so abruptly. Everything stopped for him. Time stopped. The person who had cheered loudest at his soccer matches, held him when he was ill as a child, and wrote him letters even when he was too busy to reply. His mother was no longer with him. Mark found himself standing on the brink of his sorrow in the days that followed, gazing at the family home, which had lost its heart. His siblings appeared to be absorbed in their own grief, and his father was a shadow of the man he had been. He could hardly keep up with the mechanical motions that made up the funeral, which was a blur. He couldn't stop thinking about all the things he didn't say and the times he let pass. Why hadn't he come over more frequently? When she called, why hadn't he answered the phone to have a conversation? Weeks went by. Although he never publicly displayed it, his father's health started to deteriorate after his mother died. Sitting quietly at the kitchen table, the obstinate old man would wait for someone to interrupt him. But Mark was out of things to say. He was left to sit there and bear the consequences of his carelessness. During a quiet dinner one chilly evening, his father finally broke the silence. "I think it's time to tell you something, Mark." Startled, Mark looked up from his plate. His father had never shown much emotion. He was a strong, quiet man. His father went on, his voice heavy with age and sorrow. "I've been thinking about how much time has passed. I tried, but I wasn't always the best dad. I wanted more for you than for myself, to surpass me. However, I also missed a few things." He took a moment to swallow, then went on. "I missed your first significant accomplishments. I missed your graduation. I was not present at your first job. I believed that you no longer needed me, which was what you desired. However, I was mistaken. I ought to have been present." For the first time in years, Mark felt a tear fall down his cheek as his heart tightened. His father had always been incredibly resilient and strong, but now he was apologizing for things that weren't even his fault. "Don't do that, Dad," Mark said in a fractured voice. "I was the one. I failed to arrive. I was too preoccupied with myself. Later, as I kept saying, is no longer an option. I had the opportunity to love you and Mom more, but I didn't. His father extended a rough yet warm hand across the table. Son, we both had our own setbacks, but that guilt doesn't have to stay with you forever. Now is the time to begin. Now, love yourself and us. Avoid waiting till it's too late for anybody. Both the burden of this new knowledge and the weight of the past weighed heavily on Mark as he looked down at his hands. All his parents ever wanted was for him to be there, even though they had given him everything: love, opportunities, and sacrifices, to treasure them while they were here, not only after they passed away. The following days weren't simple. In addition to feeling bad, Mark started going to see his father more frequently because he knew he had another opportunity to make amends. He made an effort to get in touch with the man who had been his hero, but with whom he had become so estranged. They attended baseball games, shared anecdotes, and occasionally just sat in silence, the warmth of their newly discovered understanding replacing the regret in their relationship. There were times when the pain of losing his mother was too great, and Mark continued to think about her every day. However, he brought her memory with him, along with a fresh appreciation he had never experienced before. He remembered the things she had taught him without realizing it, and he kept the customs she had loved alive as small tokens of his respect for her. And despite his hectic schedule, he never missed a call from his father. It was not flawless. Moments that passed them by and things they wished they had said would always be there. However, Mark had gained a priceless insight. You cannot wait indefinitely to love the people who are most important because time tends to pass while you wait for the ideal opportunity. As the story comes to a close, Mark is once again gazing at the family portrait, his heart heavy with grief and love, but also with the hard-won realization that the only thing you can do when it's too late is to start where you are and love as deeply as you can, even if that means loving after the moment has passed.